Well, we're back here at the Hall of History and our continuing look at World War II. Uh, Today we're going to look at Warm on the Home Front. Here's a picture on the left of I should say, a painting of Rosie the Riveter, kind of a very famous personage during World War II, as most of the males were in one of the military services. Many women flocked to all the industrial jobs, and Rosie the Riveter became a really became a byword for women in industrial jobs. And all this was due to the war. Do with less so they'll have enough. They were asking people at home to make sacrifices on material goods so that the troops could have them in the Pacific and in the European theaters of war. What were women's roles in the military? We had the WAC, the Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. Uh, some had tasks that were previously done by men, but there was no combat. It's just not till last few months that women have been allowed to do combat roles. Uh, Again, women who did volunteer did not receive the same pay, rank, or benefits as men doing the same jobs. Uh, Again, there was this prejudice that women could not be held to the same standards as the men. Many really felt that women should not be into the army, and that battle's been going on for a long, long, long time. Uh, Women were into the typing, the science, plot aircraft, the post office, mechanics, really anything that was non-combat related. An interesting part of the war on the home front, and again, we could spend many, many weeks talking about this, is the position of minorities during this time period. Uh, Minorities face segregation, especially down in the deep south. But in spite of this, many minorities still joined to fight for the country, and you can see the numbers here. We're going to look a little bit later on the Tuskegee Airmen. I had a chance to go down to the airfield this past summer, and we'll do a little segment on that. It's down in not just outside Birmingham, Alabama, Tuskegee, Alabama, and we'll take a little bit longer look at that hopefully next week. An interesting part is the Navajo Native Americans had a language that nobody could crack. The Japanese military could not crack that language, and they were referred to as the Windtalkers, and they were used pretty extensively in the Pacific to to communicate data, troop movements, and so forth. And Nicholas Gage, it was a few years ago, had the pleasure of starring in the movie about these Navajo Native Americans who were really heroes during World War II. And we'll take a look at those a little bit more next week too. This is an interesting time period, if you think about it, in the United States and for minorities. As we looked at World War I, the same thing happened, but on a much larger scale during World War II. Well, what questions did minorities raise about the war? Well, many times, why die for democracy when you don't even have it here? And it's an interesting philosophical discussion on this whole idea. This goes all the way back to the Civil War. If you think of the black Americans fighting for the North in the Civil War, and they couldn't even vote, and they weren't getting paid as much as the white Civil War soldiers in the North. This discussion has gone on and on, and if you look from World War II to Civil War, you're almost looking at 100 years, and many of the questions were still the same. The other part of this time period, which is really a black mark in American history, is the Japanese internment into into camps. And what there was a fear after Pearl Harbor. There was many Japanese Americans, Asian Americans living in the United States, and many Americans believed that they were all spies, and probably to the one of the worst things that happened from the war was President Roosevelt signed an order requiring removal of people of Japanese ancestry from California in Oregon, Washington, Arizona. And he justified this as being necessary for the national defense. Many of these were interned uh, in areas of Colorado, and you know this kind of harkens back to all the war on terror back into in the year 2001. And also, with Roosevelt doing this to the Japanese, does this really remind you of any other political leader during this time period interning people for the reasons of national defense? Industry's response to war: factories switched to war-producing materials. Detroit, as you well imagine, with the auto industry there, started making all sorts of tracked vehicles, planes, military trucks, jeeps, that all of that type of stuff. Every industry was converted to on war footing. American Seating, right here in Grand Rapids, were making gliders for the invasion of Europe. These gliders would be towed by planes, and they were filled with 20 to 30, 60 troops, and they would glide in on different targets. It was interesting. I was just happened to be in Midland, Michigan, and there was a shipyard there that actually made naval ships during World War II to supply the Allies during this time. Uh, it was it was just an interesting time period. All production was turned over to making war materials. It was interesting also at this time, women filled all the jobs left by the men. They became the industrial might of our country. They freed up these positions so men could fight back the Germans and the Japanese. Very, very interesting time period. In fact, if I remember correctly, until maybe it was 10 years ago, near Detroit was a large tank plant. They were also making the M1A1. It was done by Chrysler at this time. At this time, also the company Jeep, as you well know, the CJ5, CJ7, Jeep Wrangler was also developed at this time as a light truck that was to be used by the military. It's again a very, very interesting time period, and unfortunately, we just don't have time to get into every little bit of this. If you look at this, in what area did American citizens become impacted by war? It was rationing. Uh, gasoline, tires, food, shoes, meat, anything you can think of was rationed off. But everybody went along with it because it was good to help the troops overseas, and it was really, you tried to, we were trying to win the war. Was there a black market? Oh yeah, definitely. We'd be somewhat naive to don't think there was a black market on there. But most people went along with it. I remember talking to my folks at the time, and uh, they were both in their early teens at the time, and it was just the way it was. Everybody pitched in and did their part to win the war in Europe and the war in the Pacific. It'd be interesting. You have the question here: do you think this would work today? Kind of an interesting question to mull over on there. All right, so that's our brief look at that. And if you have some questions, again, don't be afraid to ask in class.